To speak to Martin Plaut. He's an Africa analyst and senior fellow at the Institute of Commonwealth Studies in London. Martin, thank you so much for your time. We said in the package that there are disagreements between the two sides, the military and the RSF paramilitary, but we need you to explain what those disagreements are.
Well, they're many and complex, but essentially they were about how to integrate the RSF into the traditional army, because they have been a sort of paramilitary force on the outside and the army doesn't like it. They also represent two different sections of Sudanese society. The army is mainly drawn from people along the Nile, and the RSF is mostly drawn from the people in the periphery, particularly Darfur. You may remember the Janjaweed that was very active in Darfur, and they were an extremely violent group of people who killed local African populations. And those are the two, and they don't want to be integrated. The RSF certainly doesn't want to be integrated.
Because they come from different sections of society, does it mean that the general public is actually taking sides regarding the fighting, or are they neutral?
I think most of the public are either hunkering down or running away. I think most of the people, as far as I can tell, it's a plague on both your sides. They don't want to be involved. The suffering is intense. Hundreds have already died, and the needs of the people are just extraordinary.
How can the outside world bring pressure on the two men who are representing these two different factions?
In a word, they can't. I mean, they can talk, they can ask, they can beg, but it would require troops on the ground to make any real difference. And I just cannot see anyone really being prepared to do that. The only force that is large enough to actually intervene would be Egypt, which has about 450,000 troops in its active service. It could intervene if it wants to. It's a neighbor. It's had long-term interests in Sudan. I mean, it actually ruled Sudan for many years. But I mean, I think there's no way that they're going to get involved. I mean, nobody wants to actually put troops in. The only way troops are going in is in very small forces to extract the diplomats and some of their own citizens. And the people of Sudan, who have hosted refugees for generations, are left to their own devices.
How bad is the humanitarian situation threatening to become? We already know people are finding it very difficult to get clean drinking water, to be able to buy food. But are we looking at something like a mass hunger, famine event if this continues?
I think it's highly likely. I mean, the hospitals, I mean, I think there were a few days ago, only 5 out of 55 hospitals in Khartoum were operational, and even they didn't have, drugs, and they were running out of everything that they required. So, I think that it's a genuine tragedy on a huge scale, and people will do the one thing they can do, which is to both flee the cities. But, the problem is, where do you flee to? I mean, this fighting is not just in Khartoum, it's across the country. The other thing that they can do is to do what they do so well, which is that the resistance committees, the civilian resistance committees, have been working extremely hard to try and organize populations, local civilians, to bring whatever help they can to people in greatest need. And in some areas, there are examples of imams working with local communities to say, look, let's have a ceasefire here. There are tiny examples of that. Maybe that can grow. But I think, frankly, this is up to the Sudanese to resolve. Because although the African Union has appointed 3 mediators and has an African standby force of about 15,000 people across the whole continent they could mobilize, are they doing it? No.
Martin, always appreciate the analysis. Thank you very much indeed. Martin Plaut in London.